It's been a very active week this week. Dean Legge, Matt DeBerry, Ryan Curley again for another edition of Riding Home. For the recruiting world, Matt, as you look up to the heavens, are you looking for the Kirby copter? Because it's out there this week.
Yeah, I'm hearing something in the new crib that just started as we started recording.
Do you have
I
a
don't think
helicopter?
it's
Do you
the
have a
Kirby copter
helipad?
right now.
Do you have a helipad on the roof?
He should be coming to Forsyth County. He's not, but like you said, man, they're doing it different, right? I don't know how many other head coaches out there are using a helicopter to fly around across their state the way Kirby and his staff do. But this is not the first year they've done it. They've done this for several years now. They plan, they go out and they execute their plan on the recruiting trail. I mean, last week, first day where they can go out and check on high school kids, Kirby himself saw 7 schools. He had assistants all over South Georgia going to schools where there are no D1 caliber players. None of these kids are getting Georgia offers that most of these schools are checking on. They're just meeting with the head coaches, building relationships, building a network, and wearing that G into the high school. It means a lot. Kids are coming out of class looking for the helicopter. I've heard stories for years now about this. I don't know of any other program doing it the way they are. Kirby was at a basketball game last night with 2 assistants, just watching a mid 4-star, not this crazy high 5-star. He was a mid 4-star kid at Warner Robins playing basketball. And Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann, and the outside linebackers coach, who I'm not going to try to say his name. He's a great guy. I'm going to butcher it if I try. But what's important is that they are starting at 7 a.m., going to their first school, and then they're ending the day at a high school basketball game, 8:30, 9 o'clock. They are constantly working. They're constantly on the trail, and that's what you have to do to build championships. I don't know if Kalen DeBoer is going to get a helicopter at Alabama. I don't know if Jim Harbaugh was using a helicopter, but that's how you build championship caliber teams. That's how you win 2 out of 3 national championships. You work hard. You fly around a helicopter all over the state, and you do it every single day. There are no day offs for this staff. I'm sure they wish they would like a day off, but the season just ended officially a couple weeks ago, and they're out on the recruiting trail the first day, seeing as many schools as possible. It hits different, and I have high school coaches tell me all the time, man, when a Georgia coach walks in the door, it just feels a little different. And I don't know how many other programs, Dean, are doing it like Georgia is right now. They just signed the #1 class in 2024. They could be well on their way to doing the exact same thing in 2025 if they keep this up. And I don't think they're going to stop. They're just doing it on a different level.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're sacrificing hanging out with their kids to go and recruit your kids. That's what they're doing. It's in the details, execution. That's the way to put it. They want it. They want it, and they have the plan, and they go out and they just do it. That's just what it is. They write the plan out, and then they just go out and do it. And imagine being a high school football player, and Kirby Smart is flying a helicopter, landing at the football field to come talk to you. I mean, is that not going to make a huge impression on you when you're picking your school, when a guy's taking his time out to do something like that, a big gesture like that? It's affecting the whole school. Everyone knows what's going on. I can't imagine if that was happening for me. I was never in that position, but they sacrifice a lot of time with their families to go out and do this, and you have to. It's part of why they're successful. It's part of why you've seen other places not be as successful. Florida with Dan Mullen was one of the first examples that just popped in my head. They could have been something special with him if he went out and did the things that Kirby was doing with this staff.
Yeah, hey, I've got 2 things off the top of my head. Number one, Matt can perhaps vouch for this, but I think I'm an expert at this. Hey, listen, if Kirby and Glenn Schumann, they want to come recruit my kids for like the weekend, they can come take them. I would say you're definitely going to need those shoulder pads, helmets, mouthpieces, likely. Lots of hot dogs, pasta. You're going to need a lot of, you're going to need a lot of like earmuffs. There's a lot of activity going on there. So they are available. I will drive them to you, actually. Secondly, so I looked something up as it relates to a helicopter. Why does Kirby use a helicopter? Well, it's extremely efficient. One of the things that from the start at Georgia, this is in 16, this is before national championships or anything like that. One multiple longtime Georgia folks said to me was Kirby he has time, but he has a limited amount of time. He's not just going to sit there and gossip or talk. Y'all, he can hit these cities with a helicopter, no problem. Charlotte, Jacksonville, Atlanta, Nashville, Birmingham. I don't think there are really cities in West Virginia. Parts of West Virginia, Virginia, southeastern Kentucky, almost all of Alabama, nearly the entire panhandle of Florida. He can get all of those in a 275-mile radius of Athens. That's just in one trip. So I know they don't really do it that way. They're probably getting fuel in Tifton or whatever when they're stopping off to see somebody at Cook County or Tiff County, for God's sake. I don't want people down there freaking out. But it's an efficient means of travel. It's extremely expensive, but what is more valuable, Matt? Is it the money or is it the time?
Probably the time, and I think the coaches would say that too. Listen, as hard as he coaches his players, I think the three of us know he coaches or works his staff just as hard. He is on top of it. And these coaches work as hard as anyone. I've said that for a while. I don't think there's a group of assistant coaches across college football who work as hard and as diligently as this Georgia staff, from even the recruiting assistants who put the list together. Hey, you can see this kid here, then you can fly here. They coordinate with the high school coaches to make sure everyone's on time. Everyone knows what's going on. There is no waiting around, like Dean said. Yeah. Every minute counts. Kirby goes in, he shakes the hand, takes some pictures, asks a couple questions about, what kids he needs to know about. Boom, he's out there in the copter, right? And, they put it up on Twitter. That first day, it was hashtag first day out. And all the assistant coaches took a picture of where they were, and it was all across social media. And if you're an assistant coach or head coach of another program and you're not doing that, and you're seeing that all these Georgia coaches are recruiting for 13, 14 hours during that day on that first day, you're falling behind. And all of these programs are falling behind if they're not doing this, because this is what it takes. You have to put in the time. You have to spend money and use the resources that you have if you want to build connections. And those connections are going to help you down the road too. Kirby knows a lot of high school coaches because he's out there grinding. And these assistant coaches, they're knowing these guys too. And the two new hires, Dante Williams, coming in. Travaris Robinson already knows everyone. I mean, he's an alpha recruiter who recruits the South as well as anyone. But Dante Williams coming in from the West Coast, he's got those connections out there. But now he's meeting these new high school coaches in Georgia, Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina. And that's what you have to do. They're doing what it takes to win championships. They've already got 2 giant trophies. And the way they're recruiting, Ryan, more should be coming soon.
It's harder for me to speak on this talking about another program, but with Kirby, it seems like the recruiting is almost, I mean, when you're hiring a coach, right, you want the coach to be a good coach, but I think that a lot of it has to do with what they can do on the recruiting trail. It feels like all of those hires, it has a lot to do with that, and then they can build from there. And I don't know that every coach goes about building their staff that way, but each hire always feels super calculated with Kirby. Like they're trying to build a staff that matches. They can hit every box. Like you said, he said this about a year ago. They leave no stone unturned when it comes to recruiting. That's why they find the Lad McConkeys and guys like that. They leave no stone unturned. It's a lot easier to do that when you have a staff that can do some of that work for you, especially when you're bringing in guys from across the country. It's easier to pick up all those stones all over the place when you have a staff that's dedicated to it the whole time. It's an operation. It really is. We always call it a machine because it is one giant machine. And what he's been really good at over the course of his career, for the most part, is finding the right pieces that make that machine function really well.
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, when you everybody mentions Ladd a lot, who I was going to mention him, but Ladd, Dylan Bell, Xavier Truss. I mean, I would argue, frankly, Carson Beck. I mean, Carson Beck and Ryan Puglisi in terms of who was Puglisi's number 2? Right, that's my point.
Yeah,
that's my point.
Well, wasn't the thing with Puglisi? I mean, he was a 3-star when they offered him, right?
Exactly.
And then it shoots up, right? But they went and they found him.
Todd Monken did.
Yeah. I mean,
But that's another example, a former coach that was getting the job done with that.
Yeah, and the other thing is too. I've talked about this a lot. Listen, if you don't have the players, forget it. So you've got to have them. And I learned that. I think it was day. I don't know if it was day one of playing. But if you do not have players, if you're not interested in recruiting, you're simply not going to scheme up. I mean, you're not going to scheme up wins. You're not going to win at the point of attack because you don't have badasses. You're not going to do it. You cannot go out there. You cannot go out there with Fatone Bauta and expect to win an SEC championship. You cannot go out there with Joe Cox and expect to win an SEC championship. You just cannot do it. So, or Grayson Lambert. I mean, Hudson Mason could have won an SEC championship, but they didn't. But it wouldn't have been because of Hudson. But you get my global point. You got to have players. And the only way in college to get players is to recruit them. People say, oh, the transfer portal. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter. These are all intertwined now. But I think the number one thing in sports in college is recruiting, and that means you better really be good at relationships. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.